everyone, and welcome back to Byte Happens, the podcast where we explore big ideas in tech in a way that connects with everyone. I'm your host, Flavia Taborga, and in past episodes, we've explored how leaders grow from developers to managers. We've talked about robots and AI shaping industries and how the cloud transform enterprise systems. And today, we have a guest whose path intersects deeply with revenue, growth, and building tech around sales. He's the founder and CEO of a company focused on helping businesses boost sales through cleaner data, stronger processes, and hands on support. John Elhardt, welcome to Byte Happens.
Thank you so much, Flavia. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Let's dive in. First, I want to talk about your journey. You've had an interesting path. Can you walk us through your story? How did you end up working at this intersection of sales, growth, and technology?
Sure. Thanks for that question. I appreciate it. My background is in inside sales. I started my career cold calling, like many of the people that we work with. So I think that background kind of fundamentally helped me understand some of the challenges that modern sales teams face when creating outbound channels. So my career was a lot of leadership around inside sales and developing sales programs for customers. I worked for an outsourced sales company before for about 5 years as a VP of sales, and I got to have an incredible amount of experience helping different types of companies build sales programs and outbound strategies. And so, you start to see some commonalities, regardless of the industry, of different challenges. And I think that really gave me the foundation to, build a consulting practice where I would help startups and small businesses to build these sales programs, everything from recruiting, training, and managing their inside sales teams, to building out technology such as CRMs or engagement platforms. So in 2017, I started a sales consulting practice where I would help startups and mid-sized businesses to build sales programs or optimize the ones that they had. So right before the pandemic, I was working with a software company that was selling a solution to schools. And I came in, and this particular team was rather large. They had about 20 SDRs and AEs, and they had success in the past, and they weren't quite sure what was wrong or how they could improve. So we took a look. I interviewed a lot of different folks on the team, and we started to make changes. To the coaching and training programs, the technology that we're using, standardized the pitch, focused on rebuttals. And we really started to have a lot of success until the pandemic hit. And the pandemic hit, pretty much everyone in every industry all across the world. But specifically, it hit vendors calling into schools really, really hard because schools shut down. Everybody went home, right? So it was incredibly challenging. So that particular team that I was working with actually booked 85% of their new business meetings over the phone. Which is a pretty high number, right? We didn't really rely on email or LinkedIn channels. It was just a very well-trained team that was highly effective at phone sales. So now we had a new problem. We couldn't get anybody on the phone anymore. And so we started to experiment with different dialing technologies where we wanted to accelerate the number of meaningful conversations that we were having each day. And we just needed to make more calls to have the same results that we experienced previously. So we tried a couple of dialing platforms, and they were working really well, but they also had their issues, right? Dealing with things like latency or delays, or some of the different features with communicating with the agents, we felt were lacking. So I was talking about the success we were having with these dialing platforms to one of my colleagues at the time. His name was Rodrigo Alarcon, and he was from Mexico City. And he said, you know what? He's like, I think we could build a platform just like this, but do it in Mexico. And so this is really the way this company was founded, was through his idea and suggestion that, I think there may be an opportunity for us to enter this space, but with the insight that we've learned from these other competitors, and create a superior product. So that was kind of the impetus, and that was
Hmm.
4 years ago. Since then, we've probably serviced over 100 customers.
Wow.
We've got about 75 employees and contractors that work at Tendril, doing different, serving different roles. And and yeah, it's been an incredible ride, and I think we're just getting started, as technology has been changing. In that same time period, AI and how it can impact technology companies came up. So the way that we envisioned this company 4 years ago is different than the way we're thinking about it now, and that's incredibly exciting for us.
Right, right. Um, yeah, that's a very interesting story. When you look back to those early days, how do you find this transition of like doing the sales versus leading a company? Now you're in the tech industry. Were there any challenges in that journey that influenced you on how you approach your work today?
I mean, it was definitely challenging. I think capacity and bandwidth is probably one of the biggest challenges, because instead of having just one job, which is to create a high performance sales team that does one thing of create new opportunities for customers, you're doing everything, right?
Right.
Creating every structure, every process, forming partnerships, doing investing activities and fundraising. um, and so I think the lack of a sole focus is probably the biggest challenge for me, um, because there's no other way to do it. You just have to be flexible enough to say, okay, I'm going to spend a little time on a lot of different things, as opposed to all my time on a specific task or a specific goal.
Right, right. You get to do now 100 different tasks that previously you were not
Yeah,
doing, but with
absolutely.
the same importance. Got it.
Hmm.
And something that comes repeatedly on this podcast is the importance of the product market fit.
Hmm.
Um, how did you navigate this when you started Tendril? Because now
That's a
you
good
had
question.
this need, but how did you approach
Hmm.
it to the market?
Yeah, so we did some initial research, and we took a look at all the different competitors, and one of the there was a key contributor on the team named Josh Regal at the time, and he did a lot of research around the different competitors. What are the different features? What are they doing as far as revenue? What's their approach? Some of their marquee customers. And we tried to look at, like, what is the total addressable market for this type of software, and are there too many competitors where it wouldn't make any sense, or is there still market share to be grabbed? And so we did as much as we could on that, as far as like an analysis,
Hmm.
which is interesting, because you could you could spend a weekend doing that research, or you could spend $100,000 doing that research. And at some point, you're going to have to make a decision. And the decision we made was we could enter the market, and we could take a sizable share of it, that could help Tendril continue to move forward and achieve its goals.
Right. Got it. Got it. And I read that Tendril emphasizes agent assisted dialing to
Hmm.
streamline the outbound sales conversations. Can you walk us through how that technology works behind the scenes? What
Sure.
parts are automated?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of different dialing options for companies that are looking to, or sales leaders that are looking to, have outbound phone sales as part of their process, or one of their channels. You have everything from a power dialer, which may just dial every number in a row very, very quickly. Um, you have something called a parallel dialer that dials
Hmm.
multiple lines simultaneously, right? And if a live person picks up, they start talking. And then you have something called agent assisted dialing. And agent assisted dialing, of all three of those, is probably the most complex, the most labor intensive, but probably the highest quality. And so the way that it works is that we've got a team of agents, and they typically are in Mexico. They'll call through a list that our customers provide, using one of our integrations with their CRM. Since the agents are bilingual, They navigate phone trees. They leave pre-recorded voicemails, and they also speak to receptionists and say, "Hi, can you transfer me to Flavia, please?" When we get the intended target on the phone, they click a button, and that live conversation is transferred instantly to the waiting salesperson.
Mhm.
So since we have 4 agents for every one salesperson, we can 4x the volume of calls in that same time period. So typically we're making about 150 calls in an hour, and depending on the quality of data, probably having 8 to 10 meaningful conversations at
Wow.
that same period. So it's quite an acceleration, especially for maybe sales leaders that have a limited number of people on their team, or maybe they don't have enough time in the day.
Right.
Sometimes we have a startup founder who's like, wow, like we talked about earlier, I got all these different things I'm working on. I don't have
Yeah.
time to cold call and prospect. Well, if you could maximize your output in 1 hour of work, suddenly you are able to do that. So that's kind of what makes it different. So it's an incredible amount of coordination. We got to recruit, um, you know, phone screen, train, quality assurance, all these these agents. I think we've probably got about 60 agents right now.
Wow.
We're running about 40 sessions a day, sometimes simultaneously. So yeah, it's pretty cool because I also remember at the beginning how excited we were when we could run 2 sessions at the same time. Just like, can we get this to work? Can customer A and customer B both be in our platform at the same time, with this coordination? And I remember that being a big deal and kind of a milestone for me. Like, wow, look what we did. Look what we built. This is incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds really, really interesting. I guess the product and the architecture itself, it's also very complex,
Hmm.
but it's very, very interesting. And I also read that part of your strategy is to bypass the interactive voice responses or IVRs.
Hmm.
And I wonder if there's any data or estimates on how much potential business is lost because of IVRs. All I know is, as a consumer, I sometimes hang up the phone when an IVR is frustrating, and I
Hmm.
suspect that might be common when people are trying to do business.
Yeah, that's a great question. And if you have that number of how much business is lost, I want that, and I'm going to put it in marketing material. But because that's exactly what we're selling here. So the phone trees, interestingly enough, some of the other parallel dialer platforms, they don't really have a way to figure this out. I mean, our hunch is that AI is going to be able to navigate phone trees eventually, and that's something that we're considering and have on our roadmap. But currently, as it stands today, many of the parallel dialers just skip the phone trees, right? And so if you have a list that is not cell phones or mobile numbers or direct dials, um, you're just throwing away money. You're just throwing away
Right.
leads. There's a huge population of your, ICP that's not being contacted just because you don't have a technology to navigate it. Um, so that's really where we shine, is having these humans actually go through. There are some other competitors that they're using AI in a way to like basically memorize the path, right? So if a human goes through and presses 1 for sales and 2 for this and 3 for that,
Mhm.
it'll remember the path. But we think we can go a step further and maybe, well, our agents can do it now, but I think AI in the future is going to be able to navigate these phone trees automatically.
Right. Right.
Mhm.
Got it. Got it. Let me pick up on data quality that you talked before. In practice, what are the biggest technical and operational challenges in cleaning and maintaining
Mm-hmm.
B2B lead data?
Yeah, that's a great question. So depending on your industry, you're typically going to have folks that find a new job every 3 years, right? It's
Right.
pretty rare that somebody sticks around for like 20, 30 years in the same role.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that's one of the biggest challenges is if you've got a lead list that you're calling and your prospects or your sales team is calling on, and it's older than that, it's 2 or 3 years old, you really are putting a lot of effort towards something that's not going to give you the results that you're looking for. Um, I've seen a lot of people looking at intent data. Um, and being a little bit more strategic with their outreach. And I think this is wonderful. We've got some partnerships with some great data providers. Specifically, Starbridge is one that we partnered with in the government and the education space, that are giving intent data, that are doing all the scraping of the websites to,
Mhm.
basically update this. They have multiple data vendor sources that can help enrich. Um, so I think, yeah, that's probably one of the challenges is aging data. Um, there's some other challenges around, um, some of I think it was last year, Google and Yahoo both put in some restrictions around, not restrictions, but just they they added some mm, oversight into. They're trying to crack down on spam, right? Because like
Okay.
there's a lot of people doing B2B sales that are doing the right thing. There's a lot of bad actors too that are just trying to swindle or scam or
Right.
create a bunch of noise in the market. And so in their attempt to kind of like put, take control of this, they've made it even more difficult for folks that are actually doing the right thing, that are trying to reach out to people and sell their products or services. So yeah, data is getting increasingly more important to consider. Uh, Especially as the world changes and like the introductions of these AI solutions, we see it as just creating an incredible amount of noise, like an infinitely
Yeah.
scalable amount of noise. And I think um, sales leaders are going to really have to consider like, how do we humanize this approach? How do we like break through? How can we be heard on top of all this mountain of content and messaging that these AI solutions are creating?
Yeah. Yeah. It's very important. Got it. And talking about what we touched on earlier, in your current role, you're leading different teams, engineering, sales, analysts. These are groups that often think and communicate very differently. How do you build bridges between these worlds?
That's a great question. So the founding team at Tendril has three people. There's myself, Rodrigo Alarcon, who is head of operations, and Luis Muñozcano, who's our head of technology. And the three of us are pretty close and are really we're domain experts in each of our different areas, right? So I'm overseeing sales and marketing, finance and legal. Luis is overseeing all the technology and the engineering and the architecture. Customer support, it rolls up to Rodrigo, along with all the delivery of all of our services and our products. And so I think we've been able to, between the three of us, um, find a good way to communicate on a regular basis. So that as long as the three of us are communicating, the messages to our teams and how we work together, uh, the integrity is kept. I
Right.
think it really allows us to kind of flourish. The culture at Tendril really flourishes in that way.
Got it. That's great. And
Hmm.
you're running this agent teams that rely on precise data and tight processes. Do you think that hiring internationally, as you mentioned, has contributed significantly to how quickly you've grown?
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. I mean, our company culture is very Mexican, even though we're a U.S. based company that has I would say 95% of our customers are also in the U.S. Um, Culturally, I think we're a very Mexican company, and yeah, there's an obvious cost of labor advantage to working with nearshore um, companies and accessing talent there. But what I've found from my perspective is the attitudinal characteristics um, from the folks in Latin America have just blown me away, right? From work ethic to just the amount of effort that's exerted every day. Um, it just I talk to a lot of sales leaders that it really reminds me of when I started in my career, 20 years ago,
Mhm.
where I was just I was doing whatever I had to do to do my job well and propel the company forward. And when we've got an entire company of people that are thinking that way, right? That we've shifted some of the psychological ownership to them and their role specifically. It's like a tidal wave, right? Like we've just got this culture of having a great attitude and an incredible work ethic, and you can do a lot with that.
Right. You're set for success.
Hmm.
Great. Got it. Okay. Looking into the future, how do you see AI and automation tools fitting into the human sales process rather than replacing it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I see a lot of marketing around like this is an AI SDR or some sort of like they're going to replace everything. And if you really peel it back, it's like, okay, well, it can write an email for you. Everybody knows it can do
Yeah.
that, right? But they've just put a wrapper around it, and it's kind of a helper tool, really. So we kind of see it the same way with the salespeople. Sales is just an incredibly human experience. People don't want to um, go to the vending machine. They want to go to the counter and have an interaction, and the pleasantries and the connection, right, and the trust and the rapport that's built. I don't know if we're going to get a lot of people that are going to prefer that method, prefer a sort of a simulated version of that, especially as deal sizes grow, right? Yeah,
Right.
maybe if I'll deal with AI if I want to buy a sandwich, but if I'm going to buy $50,000 worth of software,
Yeah, it's serious now.
I want to talk to somebody who, knows about my personal interests. That actually, we have some commonality. We like each other, right? Because that used to be the thing that we would train on. Is like people buy from people they like. I don't know if anybody's ever told me they really really like AI. I mean, on a personal level, it just doesn't work like that. So we don't see that as replacing. We see it as a helper, right? So what our tool does is it enables more meaningful conversations for humans, right? So we're using AI to create more opportunities to have a human conversation, and we think that is the future, and so that's what we're going to invest in.
Got it. Yeah. Yeah, it can be scary, but at the same time, AI is there to help, and that's how we should be using it.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about the future. How do you see the sales tech industry growing in the next few years?
Mm. Um, that's an interesting question. I think I've read some of the thoughts around an AI bubble that we're about to experience, and I think I probably agree with that. I think I think the market is going to start to know the difference between what is real AI and what's just like I don't know, like Chat GPT with different colors. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think the consumers are gonna ask for more and more innovation and more insights. With the platforms that they're using. Um, yeah, I think it will be interesting, but we may see some fluctuations in the next 5 years. Um, but also the technology is moving so incredibly quickly, so incredibly. Like I mentioned, when we started this company, there was no such thing as
Right.
AI. And then 2 years later, everybody's like, this, you got to see this, right? And so then
Yeah.
everybody's scrambling, trying to figure out how to put it into their platforms. Um, the first time we looked at it, we were like, well, okay, so now it's conversational. It can talk, right?
Yeah.
Which means, which means we can call somebody and a receptionist picks up and they say, how may I direct your call? And we can say, the conversational AI can say, could you transfer me to Flavia, please? Right? It can do that now.
Yeah.
And when it first came out, it was like, yeah, it can do it, but it's slow and it's expensive. And then like 3 or 4 months later, well, it's faster and cheaper and
Yeah.
faster and cheaper. And so, it's exciting to try to like get in front of that and participate. Um, but we'll see. I don't know. I don't have a crystal
Yeah,
ball. I
it's
can't say.
growing. It's growing exponentially. It's crazy.
Hmm.
Well, let's see. Let's see how it goes. Okay. Yeah. Okay, John, this was a fantastic conversation, and I always like to give our audience some advice before we wrap up. What advice would you give to someone from maybe a non-technical background who wants to build something tech-enabled around marketing, sales, operations?
Hmm. What advice? I think there's a general theme that we've been kind of like touching on throughout this, which is to keep the human as a component of this as much as you can. Tech enabled, right? We're not going. Don't build something that's going to replace. You know, think of it like a mech suit on that movie Aliens. You remember when Ripley gets into this thing and suddenly she has got this,
Yeah,
giant. That she's got superpowers now, but there's still a human in the middle, right? There's still someone, with a heartbeat that's, you know, walking and talking and breathing. I think that's kind of like the lens you should look through. At Tendril, we started this company. We really believed that we could build something and have a company and a culture that was based on authenticity and being genuine. Right? We didn't have to swindle. We didn't have to trick. We didn't have to mislead. Right? We could be authentic and genuine. And that's from top to bottom too. We got a lot of folks that have accents, when they're speaking English. And what we really believe is like lean into that, right? Because that's you. That's what makes you unique, right? And
right,
people are attracted to that, right? So if you change your name, like, no, I'm not Jose, I'm John, right? And you're trying to, just like modify who you are, you become this inauthentic version of yourself.
right.
So what we really, part of our culture is just lean into who you are and what makes you unique, and our customers and our prospects, they'll be attracted to that.
Got it. I love it. I love it. Embrace it. Be authentic. I really think that's very valuable.
100%.
Yeah. Um, John, where can our listeners find more about you and Tendril's work?
On LinkedIn, I think following us company page, you'll see our marketing content echoes a lot of the sentiments that I just described. We produce a lot of content that's really valuable for people that are looking at data solutions or outbound sales solutions or dialing solutions. But we also really put a emphasis on the human component, right? So you're going to see highlights of our agent of the week or SDR of the week, or maybe we're going to showcase some of the female leaders that we have that are emerging at Tendril. We find that equally, if not more important than all the other stuff, right? Is like
Great.
who we are as a company, and the human part of that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. John, thank you again for joining us today. And to our audience, thank you for tuning into Byte Happens. If you enjoyed this episode, remember to like, share, and subscribe to our platforms. I'll see you next time. And until then, remember, Byte Happens. Thank you, John.
All right. Thanks,
All
Flavia.
right.